like to call to order the October 20th, 2020 Brooklyn City Board of Education regular meeting. Mrs. A, can you call the roll?
Mr. Singer.
Here.
Mr. Neal.
Here.
Mr. Oper.
Here.
Mr. Slattery.
Here.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Here. Can we all stand for the pledge, please? I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now on to superintendent's report. Dr. Caleres.
Good evening, Mrs. Barcheck, Board of Education. Like to thank the community, first of all, and the families and parents. This week is we're starting week 4 of our hybrid schedule. Knock on wood, could not have gone better. And so our students, as a reminder, we have 2 platforms. We have our students who have continued in the remote-only platform, which that is going well. We have our students who attend in person 4 days a week for 5.5 hours. Wednesdays are the remote days for those students. What I think is unique, maybe not unique, but what we're doing is we're doing it synchronously. So our students who are at home are also participating in class while the teacher is teaching the in-person students. So teachers are doing a great job of floating back and forth in those platforms. It's gone pretty well. Obviously, it's new. Everybody this year is a first-year teacher in everything we do. But kudos to our staff, administrators, especially our students who have adapted so well to this new environment. I just want to continue to stress that, the Cuyahoga County went to level red, level 3 this past week. Looking at our data from our zip code 44144, Brooklyn seems to be doing pretty well, or that zip code seems to be doing well. We've only had 2 cases of one confirmed and one presumed positive regarding staff members, and both of those cases originated from outside of the school district. So very pleased and very thankful that we haven't had to deal with that within the school. I think that's due to us remaining diligent with our masks, our safety protocols, our cleaning, and so kudos to everybody involved doing that, especially our parents and our families for supporting that. I want to congratulate our fall athletes, marching band Herkettes, in the conclusion or in participation of their season. Students have been working since June, July, in their sports, and we've had some bumps in the roads, but kudos to those athletes, those student athletes for participating, and to the coaches, all congratulations on the completion of their season. Just want to notify or just kind of remind everybody. So the Department of Health, state level, sent down new notification rules regarding COVID cases. So for those listening, if we have a presumed positive or a confirmed case, we are required by law, by that health order, to notify our families. If that happens, or when that happens, our district nurse, Barb Manley, who also works for the Board of Health, begins the contract tracing procedures. And so just kind of a reminder, that notification will always go out, and if students are ever impacted specifically, they will hear either from one of our principals or Mrs. Manley regarding the next steps, whether they have to isolate or quarantine, things like that. So kudos to Mrs. Manley, Mrs. Victor, Mrs. Beck for the work they've done as we've opened up with students. Want to congratulate Mr. Casper and his art students. They'll be partnering with the City of Brooklyn and Sherwin-Williams on a mural. And this mural will be located at Ridge Road and Brook Park. So kudos to Mr. Casper for partnering with those 2 organizations. And lastly, I want to wish our our winter athletes good luck, and coaches. They'll be starting practices pretty shortly, and so we'll be venturing into our winter athletic season. I do have one more thing, one last thing. End of the quarter is next Friday. Monday and Tuesday of the following week, so November 2nd and 3rd, are professional development days, so there'll be no school for students. Staff will be here, And then Wednesday, November 4th will still be a remote day. I know principals are going to try to do something a little different that day with connecting with kids online, but that Wednesday will still be a remote day for our in-person students. School will start back up on that Thursday. And that's all I have, Mrs. Barcheck.
Thank you, Dr. Caleres. And now on to the treasurer's report. Mrs. A?
The only thing I have is on the next board meeting, October 28th, I will be presenting the 5-year forecast. And then with hopes, the following meeting on November 17th, it will go for vote. And that's all I had.
Thank you. Now on to our board member and committee reports, and we're gonna start off with Mr. Rob Slattery tonight.
Thank you. We actually had a rec board meeting yesterday. The agenda covered quite a bit of information. They got a new path and walkway. They're mostly finished down at Marquardt Park. They're dealing with some new water features. They're doing some bidding and due diligence on that. For as far as high school hockey, they're still waiting from the High School Athletic Association to make their final determination. But they did get something called Live Barn. It's a video system. They'll be able to stream all of the games, hockey, practices, tournament games, everything like that. Jack Abruzzi was gonna send you guys, it was gonna send it to you, Dr. Claris, and also to Jim Verba,
Excellent.
to make sure, because I know I did talk with Jim one time about the live streaming at the football game.
Mm-hmm.
And there was kind of a lag time in getting that all set up, but I don't know if it's the same system, but the rec center is actually gonna make like a 33% of whatever money this camera
Oh.
draws.
Outstanding.
So it's kind of an interesting thing, so he's gonna send some information. Football team had a rough game Friday, we were up there. It is not for a lack of trying, these kids are giving it their all. That team will turn its corner, I think we have the right coach, you're seeing more spirit, they did some changes, but they only dressed, I think, 21 kids that day. So, I mean, we need to build that program and we need more kids to get involved. I don't care who you are, 21 kids, you're not gonna, by the second half, you're gassed. Domestic Violence Committee, I have not heard anything about a meeting being scheduled. It was canceled due to COVID and we haven't heard anything come back. Facilities meeting, the dirt mound is gone. It looks pretty good what they've done up there so far. I think they're finished, the first week of November is.
It's close, yeah,
Yeah.
we're pretty close to finishing.
And then one of the last things, and I didn't see them in the gym because I haven't been in there, but up at the stadium, they had the senior banners.
Correct.
Those all look really nice. The mural, where in Ridge and Brook Park?
I don't know specifically, I'll find out, I got that information today, so I wanted to include it, but I'll find
The
out
only
specifically.
open wall there is the underpass of 480. It's a big
Yeah.
piece. It's
Find
interesting
out.
to see.
Yeah, we'll find out for sure.
All right, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Slattery. Now on to Mr. Rocky Neal.
I have no report. I'd just like to welcome everybody back for the safe schooling. That's it. That's all I
Thank
got.
you. Thank you, Mr. Neal. Now on to Mr. Jim Ober.
Thank you, Madam President. My Polaris report. In the financial area, most years tax delinquencies average about $240,000. This year it's about $35,000, which aids in the bottom line, as Mrs. A will attest to. The renovation project financially is ready to be closed. There's a last check due to A.M. Higley, and after that's taken care of, there'll be an amount close to $500,000 left over. Rather than putting that back in the general fund, it'll remain in the permanent improvement fund for future equipment needs for the students. The 5-year forecast was presented, and with every other district, there's deficit spending coming up in the 3rd and 4th years, but the unknowns at this point for all districts are the next biennium budget and the next kind of reassessment in 2024. There's some traction in Columbus for new funding model, but we've heard that tune before. Polaris will be going back to the standard schedule rather than the abbreviated one on Monday the 26th, which is good. The big highlight was the machining teacher at Polaris had some medical issues and had to back out this year. So they got a long-term sub for the classroom part of it. And one of the business partners of Polaris is Swedgelock, who's the largest non-medical employer in Cuyahoga County. They picked up the ball and really ran with it. For the senior class this year and the junior class this year, they will handle the lab part of the classes. And they will all be given jobs on graduation if they should so choose to. Juniors and seniors, seniors this year and juniors, not interns, but jobs. You have to go through the whole process as far as drug testing and all of that, but they'll be getting $15 to $18 an hour just off the bat. And if this goes well, then this will just keep going. So that's huge. And if they want to go for their apprenticeship, Lorraine Community College will pay for that through a government grant. So this is virtually no cost for anything, which is unheard of. So that's just knocked our socks off when we heard that. That's all I have, and turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Oper. And now on to Mr. Rick Singer.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. I just wanted to kind of repeat a little bit from what Rob Slattery was saying about the practice field. Friday night at the game, as we were walking out, a lot of the fans and parents commented on the fact, and it was kind of dark, but they still could see that Mount Rodon was gone, and they were impressed with the fact that our practice field is back. I think we're all kind of happy for that. So look forward to seeing our students, our athletes practicing on that field next spring. I'm very happy that as a board and Dr. Collaros and his staff decided to continue the in-person hybrid program. You know, I just look at my own daughter and see that she enjoys going to the classrooms, doing the lab work, and the Wednesday session at home is kind of a little bit of a breather for her as well. So, you know, I think that's a successful path for us to stay on.
Mr. Singer, I'd just like to thank the board for supporting that. Seriously, it's not a singular decision. It's not an easy decision by any means, and we're all dealing with unprecedented things that none of us have ever went through. None of us has ever been trained for, and so kudos to the board and thank you for your support in our decision. So I really do appreciate that.
It's my pleasure. I'd like to welcome again the student athletes for the winter program. I pray that we can get a couple games in without incident, and look forward to that season. And lastly, I would like to have the board perhaps consider or reconsider. I know we've talked about it several times, and Dr. Collaros, I know we've talked about this too, is the possibility of going with a tuition program for students. And the reason for that is I'm getting a lot of blowback, feedback from parents from other school districts who are going virtual. And you know, as a parent, I can appreciate their concerns. They would rather have their children in a classroom setting. So I'm not sure if this is perhaps an opportunity that we can look into and fill in some of our empty seats.
Sure.
But that we should probably, you know, I think a lot of us thought the COVID issue would be over and done with by now, but it looks to me like this is going to be, at least I'm going for a few more months, if not for another season. So, and then lastly, and Jim, thanks for kind of prompting me on this, but we had discussions with Medical Mutual a while back, and about talking about internship programs for our Brooklyn students. You know, Jim's mentioning Swedgelock is just a wonderful story, and it's a great opportunity for students everywhere in the Polaris system, but it would also be nice if Medical Mutual would maybe perhaps open up jobs. I know they're in dire need of coders, medical coders. They contract a lot of that work out, and as they get settled in here in Brooklyn, perhaps there's other opportunities for our students to.
Mr. Singer, I did talk with a man by the name of Jim Solura from Medical Mutual about a week and a half ago, and we're in preliminary talks of getting that program set up. Just not quite there yet with releasing the information, but definitely looking to the spring and definitely into the summer opportunities for the kids. So those conversations have started.
That's good. Is this in conjunction with Polaris?
It is not in.
They don't have any medical coding
Yeah.
curriculum.
It would be, to summarize the conversation, looking at students, going into so they're just graduating or they're going into their senior year of high school, using it for that opportunity if they're looking towards the business field, kind of giving them lots of different opportunities to work in that office setting. Again, like I said, we're in preliminary conversations, but I definitely think those opportunities will be there this spring, summer for our students.
I just want to also, in addition to that, I have a client who works in a senior position, HR position at Quadex.
Mhm.
And they are very much involved in medical coding. They're always looking for people.
Right.
So it may perhaps, and they're right here in Middlebrook Heights. They actually have several facilities, but, might be a nice way to reach out to them.
Absolutely.
And they pay their coders good money too.
Yeah, they do, yeah.
It's a big field.
It is it's a needed field for sure, absolutely.
And a report. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Singer. My report also will be very short and brief. I have a question for Mr. Oper. Is Polaris, do you know, if we stay in red, they are still going back on the 26th?
Yes, Superintendent Timmons is of a like mind. He, wants everybody back in as much as
Okay.
possible, and the scheduling issues have been resolved, so.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, they wanna,
Okay.
definitely want.
Even if we
Watch
stay
them.
red?
Yep.
So in case the parents ask. Okay, thank you. I can always be reached at 216-406-4304. And now we're gonna go on to the reading of minutes and approval of minutes. And Mr. Rob Slattery is our reader for tonight.
Okay, we will start with I'm gonna take this off since everybody else is far enough away. Resolved that the minutes of September 23rd, 2020 Board of Education meeting be adopted. And all action by the Board of Education at said meeting is hereby reaffirmed and approved.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments? Mrs. A, can you call the roll?
Mr. Singer,
Yes.
Mr. Neal,
Yes.
Mr. Oper,
Yes.
Mr. Slattery,
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes.
3.2 Financial Statements. Resolved that the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby approves the financial statements of receipts and expenditures for the month of September 2020, including all purchase orders paid and all then and now statements for the month of September as submitted.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments? Mrs. A, can you call the roll?
Mr. Singer,
Yes.
Mr. Neal,
Yes.
Mr. Oper,
Yes.
Mr. Slattery,
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes.
Okay, the 4.1 bylaws, policies, first reading. The superintendent recommends the first reading for the following policies, bylaws. PO 2464, gifted and educated and identification. PO 3120, employment of professional staff. PO 3120.04, employment of substitutes. PO 3120.05, employment of personnel in summer school and adult education programs. 3120.08, employment of personnel for co-curricular, extracurricular activities. 4120, employment of classified staff. 4120.08, employment of personnel for co-curricular, extracurricular activities. 4162, drug and alcohol testing of CDL license holders and other employees who perform safety-sensitive functions. And 5460, graduation requirements.
Do we need a motion for that, or since it's first reading?
Procedural?
No.
That's procedural.
Oh, procedural, yes. Mr.
I
Dr.
do
Flores,
have
do you have
I
any?
do have a question
Yep.
for Dr. Claris.
Yes,
Dr.
sir.
Claris, on the graduation requirements, is that a change at all in the policy?
Yeah, so.
Comply with Neola, or?
Yeah, so what happened last year when COVID hit, they revamped the policies, and so this aligns the graduation requirements with current state law. So a lot of these policies that you've seen are getting caught up from the spring when everything happened. So this is just kind of a catch-up, and we needed to have this in place pretty quickly. We want to make sure that our policy matched with our what we were going to implement for our students.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else?
4.2, agreement with Bauman Enterprise, Inc. Resolved that Brooklyn City School District Board of Education authorizes the superintendent enter into an agreement with Bauman Enterprise, Inc., effective October 1st, 2020, for the redevelopment of a practice field located northwest of Brooklyn Stadium, 4500 Hurricane Alley, Brooklyn, Ohio, 44144 per the attachment.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments?
Ms. Barczyk, this is just memorializes the agreement that GDP, regarding the contract with the vendor, the contractor doing the work for us.
Mrs. A, can you call the roll?
Mr. Singer.
Yes.
Mr. Neal.
Yes.
Mr. Oper.
Yes.
Mr. Slattery.
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes.
4.3, access agreement with West Creek Conservancy, Biohabitats, Great Lakes, and Meadville Land, Inc. Resolved that the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education authorize the superintendent to enter into a no-cost access agreement with the West Creek Conservancy, Biohabitats, Great Lakes, and Meadville Land Services, Inc. for the restoration of Stickney Creek located at Hurricane Alley East parking lot per the attachment.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments?
Yeah, this was, Dr. Glykoff had initially started conversations. This is for really just an access agreement so that these organizations can begin restoring Stickney Creek. So it's gonna extend on our property and the city's property also. I believe it'll begin at Memorial Park and then come through to our property. Timeline on this, I thought it was gonna begin early fall. I don't anticipate that happening. Probably either late winter, early spring, but if that changes, I'll let the board know.
Dr. Ted, is this gonna impact the traffic patterns?
I don't believe so, Mr. Singer, no.
Is this the extension of the acres?
I think this was
Yeah.
the second phase that they wanted to do. I think they're coming from Memorial. This is just for coverage coming back towards Ridge Road.
Correct,
But
that's right.
they should stop right at the drive of the library.
That is correct, yeah.
And then, over the next 4 to 5 years, they wanna tear that whole section out and put a monster culvert underneath Ridge Road.
Yeah,
That
so
would
I think
help
it
it flow.
starts, so the practice field, down the hill, the creek's there, goes all the way past past the field, like you said, right up to the boundary of the library, so
Yeah.
yeah, correct.
That was the preliminary talks
Yeah.
when they were doing ours.
They wanna keep going in under Memphis the whole way down.
Yeah, they're just doing it in decent sized chunks, just 3 or 4 of them happen to be in Brooklyn. Okay.
Anyone else? Mrs. A, can you call the roll?
Mr. Singer.
Yes.
Mr. Neal.
Yeah.
Mr. Oper.
Yes.
Mr. Slattery.
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes.
4.4 Brooklyn City School District Gifted Identification and Service Plan for the 2020-2021 school year. Resolved that the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby approves the attached gifted identification service plan for 2020-2021 school year.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments?
Ms. Barczyk, this is just an annual update of our gifted identification and service plan. The only change this year is that we moved, because of the current situation, we moved some of our gifted administration online. And so that gives us the ability to do that, and we went from, we were using InView last year, paper pencil. We've now added the COGAT online option this year, so that's really the only change.
Okay. Anyone else? Mrs. A, can you call the roll?
Mr. Singer.
Yes.
Mr. Neal.
Yes.
Mr. Oper.
Yes.
Mr. Slattery.
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes.
4.5 Payment of Transportation Deemed Impractical, 2020-2021. Resolved that Brooklyn City School District Board of Education, in accordance with the revised code, chapter 3327, and the procedures set forth by the Ohio Department of Education, declare transportation impractical for certain identified students. The resolution follows careful evaluation of all other available options prior to consideration of impracticality. List on file in the board office as noted.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments?
Ms. Barczyk, Board of Education, this is annual thing, we have to do this every year. Students who live within the Brooklyn city limits, attend private schools or community schools or parochial schools. We're still required to transport them instead of actually taking a vehicle and transporting them to their school. They receive a stipend every year. It's a $250 stipend. We have approximately 40 students that take advantage of that. So that's why we deem this impractical, because our cost to transport would be significantly higher than the stipend. So a lot of districts do this in terms of how we transport kids. This is our how we deal with it.
Do parents have to apply? Do they have to fill out anything?
They
or
do,
we-
yeah. We send them a notice. They fill out some paperwork. At the end of the year, we'll get a report card or a transcript saying that they completed the year there, and then that's how they receive their payment.
Okay.
Do we still pay them if they're not going to school, if they're virtual?
That's a great question. I don't know. I would have to talk with Mrs. Aholt over here to find out the ORC. I still believe we're required to pay them, but I don't know the question. I don't know the answer to that question.
Anyone else? Mrs. A, can you call the roll?
Mr. Singer,
Yes.
Mr. Neal,
Yes.
Mr. Oper,
Yes.
Mr. Slattery,
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes.
5.1, certified salary schedule placement 2020-2021. Resolved, the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education, I hereby approve salary schedule placement for the 2020-2021 school year as follows. Dana Bertzlaff, class 5, step 18.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a question?
Second.
Second? Questions, comments? Anyone? Mrs. A, can you call the roll?
Mr. Singer,
Yes.
Mr. Neal,
Yes.
Mr. Oper,
Yes.
Mr. Slattery.
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes.
5.2, classified staff employment. Resolved, the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education, I hereby approves the employment of Christopher Clements, custodial cleaner, step 1, appendix B, 5 hours per day, effective October 5th, 2020.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments?
Just welcome to Mr. Clements.
5.3, classified staff resignation.
Oh, no, Mrs.
No,
A,
we gotta
can you
vote.
Oh,
call
I'm
the-
sorry. I want to get through this, all right,
Yeah.
sorry.
Can you call the roll? Mrs. A?
Formalities.
Mr. Singer,
Yes.
Mr. Neal,
Yes.
Mr. Oper.
Yes.
Mr. Slattery,
Yeah,
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes.
okay, now, 5.3, classified staff resignation. Resolve the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby accepts the resignation of Amanda Casey, custodial cleaner, effective October 2nd, 2020.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments?
Just like to thank Miss Casey for her time.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mrs. A, can you call the roll?
Mr. Singer,
Yes.
Mr. Neal,
Yes.
Mr. Oper,
Yes.
Mr. Slattery.
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes.
5.4, employment of classified substitute personnel. Resolved that the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby approves the employment of the following classified substitute personnel for the 2020-2021 school year. Kay Belisario, secretary. Christopher Clements, custodial maintenance. Michelle Nill, room assistant secretary. Beverly Kren, classroom assistant and health aide. J.C. Rowland, custodial cleaner, library media, transportation, cafeteria, classroom assistant, and it's cut off their health
Health aid.
Nothing.
aid, okay. Lori Stahura, custodial cleaning, library media, transportation, cafeteria, classroom assistant, health aid.
And
Mary-
secretary. Treasurer, office personnel, and secretary. That's cut off.
Oh, okay, all right. And then Mary Ellen Sevcek, transportation.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments? Mrs. A, can you call the roll?
Mr. Singer,
Yes.
Mr. Neal,
Yes.
Mr. Oper,
Yes.
Mr. Slattery.
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes.
5.5, supplemental coaching assignments 2020-2021. Resolved that Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby approves the following persons for the 2020-2021 supplemental coaching assignments with the provisions that the individuals comply with all Ohio High School Athletic Association rules and regulations and State Department of Education regulations pertinent to the proper certification and/or first aid training and fulfills the requirements of the job description attached to the supplemental contracts. In an event, 1, an athletic season is suspended or canceled. 2, the students do not participate in co-curricular, extracurricular pupil activity programs. And/or 3, individuals that are not specifically assigned in writing by the superintendent to perform supplemental duties under RC 3313.53, RC 331908A, and applicable laws during the 2020-2021 school year. The Brooklyn School District Board of Education may suspend any and all supplemental contracts and directs the treasurer to not make any payment whatsoever to any individual in connection with supplemental contracts.
Can I have a motion, please? Or you
You
guys
want
know
to,
it?
well, there's only a couple of names over here.
Okay.
Mike Ross, ice hockey varsity coach. Joshua Dress, ice hockey varsity assistant coach. Matthew Masuga, JV basketball boys coach. Kyle Akins, intermediate boys basketball, 7th and 8th grade. Keith Hall, intermediate boys basketball coach, 7th and 8th grade. Ray Mass, head varsity wrestling coach. And Rebecca Bindis, JV girls basketball coach.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Questions, comments?
Question,
Yes, sir.
do we have enough students participating in these sports at this time?
I believe we do. I know, from my previous life, ice hockey was always the one that but yeah, I believe we have 17 students signed up. They haven't started officially yet until the end of the month. I know the ice hockey and wrestling start in the first weeks of November, so we'll have those official numbers once we start the practices. But I've been given no indication that we won't have those teams. Yeah.
Anyone else? Ms. A, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Singer.
Yes.
Mr. Neal.
Yes.
Mr. Oper.
Yes.
Mr. Slattery.
No.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes.
6.1, student activities. Resolved that the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby approves the application for the following student activities. Brooklyn High School Student Council Activity Fund, financial year 2021, and Brooklyn High School Student Yearbook Activity, financial year 2021.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments? Mrs. A, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Singer.
Yes.
Mr. Neal.
Yes.
Mr. Oper.
Yes.
Mr. Slattery.
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes.
6.2, consolidation of activity funds and transfer of dormant activity funds. Resolved that the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby approves the consolidation of activity funds into the respective principals' funds and transfer of dormant activity funds to the respective principal accounts.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Question, comments?
All this is doing, after reviewing the student activities and the district managed activities and the principals fund, they weren't really consistent with our other state guidelines. So I'm just consolidating them to go with the guidelines more. And then for the dormant activity funds, there's some activity funds that haven't been used for 3 or 4 years. The students are already gone. So I'm just recommending to put that into the principals fund.
Are they restricted or earmarked for anything?
So none of this affects the general fund, and the 200 accounts are restricted for student activities. But if they're dormant funds, then with the approval of the board, they can be transferred to a different fund.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Mrs. A, can you call the roll?
Mr. Singer.
Yes.
Mr. Neal.
Yes.
Mr. Oper.
Yes.
Mr. Slattery.
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes.
6.3, Principals Fund Budget Proposal. Resolved that Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby approves the middle school and high school principals fund budget proposals. On file in the Treasurer's Office.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments?
So all this is now that we have the money into the principals fund, it's just approving them to spend it.
Anyone else? Mrs. A, can you call the roll?
Mr. Singer.
Yes.
Mr. Neal.
Yes.
Mr. Oper.
Yes.
Mr. Slattery.
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes.
6.4, establish new funds 507 and 510. Resolved that the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby approves the establishment of the 507 and Fund 510. The Fund 507 purpose is to provide emergency relief grants to the school district related to COVID-19 pandemic. Classification, governmental fund type, special revenue. Fund 510 purpose is to cover costs that are necessary expenditures incurred due to the public health emergency with respect to COVID-19. Classification, governmental fund type, special revenue.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments?
This is just establishing that our funds are gonna be on our books. Usually with federal and state established funds with predetermined numbers, some say you don't need them board approved since they were already established by the federal government. Some say you need a fund that you do need approval on it, so I was just putting it on here just to make sure we had approval.
Anyone else? Mrs. A, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Singer.
Yes.
Mr. Neal.
Yes.
Mr. Oper.
Yes.
Mr. Slattery.
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes.
6.5, Power for Schools Electrical Energy Contract. Resolved that Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby authorizes the execution and delivery of a master electric energy sales agreement between the district and Power for Schools endorsed electrical supplier NG Resources LLC, as noted.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Questions, comments? I mean,
Second.
second,
Second.
questions, comment?
This is just a two-year agreement,
Okay.
paid for the general fund for better pricing.
And for this is for our 2-year agreement for our electrical for,
Correct, yes.
okay. All right, anyone else? Mrs. A, can you call the roll?
Mr. Singer,
Yes.
Mr. Neal,
Yes.
Mr. Oper,
Yes.
Mr. Slattery.
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes. Do we have any correspondence related to action or information? None at this time. Do you have any other business?
Go out and vote.
Yes. Announcement of the next regular meeting is Wednesday, October 28th, 2020, in the Media Center located Brooklyn Intermediate Elementary School, 9200 Bidoff Road, Brooklyn, Ohio, at 6 PM. Can I have a motion for adjournment, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments? Mrs. A, can you call the roll?
Mr. Singer,
Yes.
Mr. Neal,
Yes.
Mr. Oper,
Yes.
Mr. Slattery.
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes.